things of that nature, 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 things of that nature.
Ain't no days off in this business. What's up, everybody? Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis here with Inside Arkansas. It's a pot of that nature transfer portal Christmas special. Courtney Crutchfield, wide receiver, Missouri, Arkansas native, is a Razorback. That's a nice Christmas gift for the Hogs. First of all, Merry Christmas to everyone out there. Second of all, the numbers are already going crazy in terms of people viewing this. If you're one of them, you're the real MVPs. Hope everybody's enjoying. And if you're listening to this at your Christmas table, we'll make sure we keep it PG for the kiddos. But big news for the Razorbacks. Got themselves another receiver. Andrew, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I am currently in a house full of people who, most of which I don't think have any idea that I snuck away, and it'll take them about 5-10 minutes before they even notice that I was gone. The Texans game had literally just kicked off, and we get an announcement, which that's just kind of how things go. Right as soon as you let your guard down, I know you were taking Michelle to the airport, getting your way back. As soon as you let your guard down, the Razorbacks drop some news on you. A little Wednesday afternoon Christmas edition news dump. But hey, it's one that we've been waiting for. It's one that we've had our opinions on for a while. I know a lot of the fan base really cares about this one. You have an in-state guy in Courtney Crutchfield coming back home. And so I'm excited. I'm excited that this announcement has finally been made and we can talk about what he can do as a Razorback and it be really something that's real other than just hypothetical. I feel like Hog fans have had a few years to really spin it in their minds of how they imagine Courtney Crutchfield could be used at Arkansas. Well, now we'll get to find out.
Yeah, that's exactly right, man. And honestly, we've been doing this song and dance for about a week now, I guess. Rumblings started coming out that Crutchfield might be hitting the portal from Mizzou, and if and when that happened, that he was probably going to be a Hog. And then he hit the portal, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited. It felt like years, but it was only just a handful of days. But no drama here. Arkansas gets their guy, and now they're starting to put together their receiver room. We can start to see the vision a little bit. Omega Blake out of Charlotte yesterday. You have your home run guy, right? You've got your deep ball threat, which they needed, some size, a guy that they can throw it up and he can go get it on the outside. And now in Crutchfield, listen, an immense talent. I think 24/7 Sports had him as a top 50 prospect in the country in last year's class. Didn't play at Mizzou this year, but yes, I do acknowledge they had Theo Weiss, they had Luther Burden in that receiver room. It was a deep one. So what you're doing here is you're bringing Crutchfield in. And as I see it, Andrew, and tell me if you see it differently, I think that they're looking at Crutchfield to come in, be a starting receiver and an impact guy right away, which means his production or his talent is going to have to meet production right away. They need him to go from 0 to 100 real quick. You got to realize that potential, man, because they need him to come in and make an impact right away opposite of Omega Blake. And if he does that, then you're in business.
Absolutely. I mean, I think when you look at what Arkansas is doing in the portal, and every time we add one addition to the table, we say, hey, there's still a lot of work to be done. We still are going to wait and see how this roster looks out. But a wide receiver, you're really starting. I mean, that's now Arkansas's fourth pickup in the transfer portal at wide receiver. We have a pretty good idea those are going to be the guys this offense is built around. We'll see the bowl game Friday if any new characters emerge in that room. But now we're starting to kind of see the vision of what this team is putting together. And yeah, you're right. It is set up for Courtney Crutchfield to walk right into Arkansas as what he will be a redshirt freshman, ready to take on a real role right away, which is sure I'm something that that's a heavy motivation for him wanting to come to Arkansas. I would. There's a lot to like with this Courtney Crutchfield pickup. I mean, according to 24/7 Sports, you're talking about one of the top 50 players overall in his class. So him not playing this past year doesn't do enough to dispel me from the idea that this isn't a talented pickup. Right. I believe On3 had him as a top 150 player in the class last year. As it stands today, I was just looking at this. Courtney Crutchfield is rated by On3 as the number 126 overall player in the portal and a top 25 wide receiver. If number 126 doesn't sound impressive to you, as you mentioned the other day, there's like a billion players in the, like literally several, like close to 10,000. So if you're a top 130 guy, that says something about at least how you're viewed nationally. I know Hog fans have known about this guy for a while. The ones that follow recruiting were really adamant, really wanted him to be a Hog, and were heartbroken when the Pine Bluff native went to Missouri. And so it could be a cool little story for him to come home and really embrace the Razorback fandom. If he ends up being a go-to weapon for Arkansas, we're talking about a guy that's going to be a major fan favorite Now you've got Braylon Russell back at running back. I mean, the home state Hogs are cooking here. But I really appreciate, I wasn't on the stream yesterday when you guys talked about Omega Blake. I'm a huge fan of his work. I'm just a huge fan of what he could do. I feel like, will he be a number one? I don't know, but he's a guy that I know can be productive at any level of college football. We've seen him do it against good teams. We've seen him do it for a couple years now at the the Division I level. He also had some production at South Carolina. So I feel like getting a guy like that kind of frees you up to take a swing on a young, talented kid that's a little bit more of a question mark, a little bit more of a mystery in Courtney Crutchfield, just because we haven't seen him play. But again, it really makes me feel a lot better. If Arkansas were just saying, hey, Courtney Crutchfield, you're the guy, that would probably concern me. But you have Omega Blake there. You have Raylan Sharp coming from Fresno State. You do have Cam Shanks, and Arkansas, we'll also see what they do. Maybe they're not done at wide receiver. But I do think that getting Omega Blake frees you up to take a swing like this. And so does Arkansas have a true number one wide receiver? I don't know. But I do think they have some talented pieces, and you're starting to see a nice little mix of skill sets in that room.
Yeah, for sure. Crutchfield definitely has the talent to be that guy. We have to see it. I mean, he's going to have the opportunities. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So we'll see what he makes of it. And just looking at, Arkansas's receiver room from last year. And again, it's not a one-off comparison. Like, you're not going to go replace the 1,140 yards and 78 receptions you got out of Andrew Armstrong with one guy. That's not going to happen. But can you, kind of improve at spots 2 and 3 and then supplement from there? Maybe so. But I look at it, and so in my mind, Andrew, I'm thinking, all right, Courtney Crutchfield, redshirt freshman, no stats to his name so far, but we know that he's a big-time talent. I look at Arkansas's number 2 receiver last year was Isaiah Sategna. He had 37 catches for just shy of 500 yards. Can Crutchfield come in and give you something like that, or maybe a little bit more than that? Or Isaac Tesla, 25 receptions for 438 yards and 3 touchdowns. Can a guy like Crutchfield, who hasn't done it yet, I think he's talented enough too, so it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out, but can he give you a little bit more than that? And then can Omega Blake give you some more than that? And then can you get somebody else who can come and fill that in? They get a guy like Jaden Platt at tight end, who they're probably not going to throw it to a ton. So like, you're going to have to replace the receptions and the yardage from Luke has probably elsewhere, probably in that receiver room. I'm just doing all the math here to see how it's going to work. And I can't wait to see how it works out, but it's going to be interesting to say the least.
It's definitely going to be interesting. And I feel like the theme of this Arkansas transfer portal class is you're taking a swing on younger players who haven't proven a ton, but are highly talented guys that you feel like have a chance to be potential draft picks, potential NFL guys. I mean, you're talking about a guy in McCroy, top 100 recruit in his class. Jaden Platt, who you just mentioned, top 100 recruit in his class. Courtney Crutchfield, top 100 recruit in his class. Will all 3 of those guys become stars? I don't know. But I think that I don't hate the idea of getting some guys like that where you're just, you're trying to see if you can find a diamond in the rough, per se. And I mean, all 3 of those guys are rated pretty respectably. Some of Arkansas's highest rated transfers, no matter where you're looking, whether it's 24/7 or on 3. And I feel like ultimately when we look back at this Arkansas recruiting class, this transfer portal window in particular, it's going to be some of these X factors like McCroy and like Crutchfield, where it's like that will end up determining how good this class is. Because if Courtney Crutchfield is that guy that you say that's going to just immediately be that 500, 600-yard guy, I think Omega Blake's a 500, 600-yard guy. And so it really lowers my expectation for what those other guys have to do. Because if you're getting that out of these 2 guys, I feel pretty good about the wide receiver room. But I do want to just emphasize how much of an X factor this really is. Raylan Sharp is a guy that I feel like is a safe bet to contribute on some level. I don't know if he has a super high ceiling as a 5'8" guy that's coming from Fresno State. I think Omega Blake is a pretty safe bet to contribute a solid amount. Cam Shanks, I don't know what to expect, considering that, he was at UAB, a really bad team. He was a really good punt returner. He's clearly electric, but is he going to be a true wide receiver? We don't really know. But I think with Crutchfield, a lot of people have kind of just penciled him in as the most ideal Andrew Armstrong replacement, as a guy that's just going to come in and, like you said, match a lot of that production, not necessarily the 1,200 yards or whatever it was, but is going to be a guy that Arkansas can really feature in this offense. And I think that's just optimistic for a guy that was not in the 2 deep at Missouri. Again, Missouri, I'm sure we know they have a couple NFL wide receivers. I'm sure they got plenty of talent on their roster, but it would be a pretty big jump in development to go from not on the travel roster to go-to guy in the SEC in a matter of a year. But I also feel like with Arkansas, and we've said it from the jump, you don't really get to be picky. You don't really get to say, well, have you really proven enough? You got to take as much talent as you can get. And this is talent. Let's make no mistake about that. This is a talented piece that I feel like has some high upside, and I like taking a swing here. I just I do wonder if Arkansas is counting on him to really be a go-to guy, because Omega Blake's really good deep threat. Is he a number one receiver as well? Like, I really don't know. But I think you can make a real argument at this point that Arkansas's overall wide receiver room is not far off from what it was last year, despite the fact that you don't have one guy as good as Andrew Armstrong.
Yeah, for sure. And they're literally losing everyone who contributed to the cause this year outside of, 8 catches from Jordan Anthony or whatever it was. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. What I really wonder is, are they good now? Like, are they set at wide receiver or not? Because one thing that we've seen in the past, and what I mean by the past is like the last few days, is like, okay, if all of a sudden we start seeing offers pop out at a certain position, it typically means they missed on somebody at said position. Like we saw it at defensive line with the Georgia guy. We've seen it at some different spots. We've seen hell at receiver, even like with the Kendrick Law situation and DT Sheffield. I wonder if they're done, or, I mean, you see they've got the January 1st through 5th visit window. The kid from Eastern Michigan, his name always escapes me. He's taken a visit. The Division II guy, Reginald Vick, which is just what a name, by the way. Omega Blake, Courtney Crutchfield, Reginald Vick. That just sounds like a winning recipe at receiver on the all-name team, at least. But they've got some guys lined up coming to visit. I know they're connected with some others. So as I look at it, Andrew, and I'm being greedy, I'm not looking at, is Arkansas replacing who they've lost? Because that ain't good enough. That wasn't good enough for people at the end of this year because it was 6-6. Everybody was ticked off. They wanted Sam Pittman to get the heck out of here. He's doing a pretty good job in the portal right now in terms of replacing some of what they lost. They got to upgrade. Like, they got to shoot for the stars here because people are going to be expecting to see more than 6 wins against a tougher schedule. I think they need to go out and get another dude at receiver, and I'm anxious to see if they're going to go out and do it or not.
I think they will as well. I think they're operating as if they do definitely need another receiver. We mentioned that this wasn't necessarily a stunning development. We've kind of been circling this for a week. We wouldn't have been surprised if this announcement had come literally 6-7 days ago. And so I think the coaching staff as well obviously had a good idea that Courtney Crutchfield was coming in. So it's not like this is a new development. And I know some of those guys you mentioned, like a Jordan Dwyer, like a Vic, like those guys had their visits scheduled here for a few days now. I don't think this Courtney Crutchfield announcement, him officially putting pen to paper, is going to change any of that. I think those visits are still going to operate as planned. And so, yeah, absolutely. If I were Arkansas, I'd be making Jordan Dwyer say no first before I do anything else. Cause I really like that kid. Like I don't know, maybe it's just a gut feel. Maybe it's just, I just really bought into the Idaho Vandals stat page, but I'm like, this seems like one of those guys that, is kind of flying under the radar that I feel like could come in and be a legit weapon for Arkansas. So yeah, I definitely think you're probably looking at least one more. And again, like we said, you don't really get to be picky for Arkansas at wide receiver, just with what they have to replace overall offensively. And the fact that you have some of these guys like a Crutchfield, like even a Cam Shanks, who are kind of variables. They're not really guys where, he was at this level and he produced X amount, so he'll come to Arkansas and produce Y amount. You can kind of do that game with Raylan Sharp. You can't really do it with Courtney Crutchfield right now. And I know some people are very optimistic, think he's going to be that guy, and he very well could be, but I think the fact that you have a little bit of an X factor there means you probably need as many of those as possible. And then eventually the cream will rise to the top. You should end up having a competent SEC wide receiver room.
Yeah, one would certainly think so. Let's get into some of our chats here, and then we're not going to keep you guys too long. We're not going to keep ourselves too long. It is Christmas after all. I just dropped my wife off at the airport. She's going to Rome through the new year, so good for her. But I know you're kind of, you might be hiding out a little bit. I might need to lower my voice some so you don't get caught out there.
No. I mean, at this point, I feel like they've figured it out.
Exactly. Shout out to William Williams. That's good
cool stuff right there.
Yeah, I saw somebody else a little bit later say something about Bill Bills. I guess it was referring to this guy, but he says getting there, need a tight end or two, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Where are you at with this situation? I look at it right now, and I think they're probably done now on the offensive line. I would agree with another tight end or two. I think they need another receiver, and I guess they're done at running back, although I don't feel like they've gotten better at running back. So I don't know.
Again, I really think Arkansas is in a position where you got to go best available. The best player you can get. If it's a receiver, if it's a guard, if it's a running back, if it's a tight end, you really just got to go out there and get it. But realistically, though, I do think minimum one more tight end. I would imagine they're just going to bring in some guy that can just log snaps for Arkansas because they only have maybe 3 scholarship guys on the entire roster right now, and one of those being a freshman who's a true freshman who's a converted defensive lineman, and you also have your starting fullback in Maddox Laster. So it's like you need just literal bodies, and that could be a preferred walk-on guy, that could be a random JUCO guy. I don't know. It's not going to be a game changer by any means. But on the offensive side of the ball, yeah, I think you still are looking at, like we said, one more receiver. I think they're probably done at running back as well. I think they kind of had their guys that they wanted to get, and then they ended up settling for the guys that they have now, which is kind of how that played out. You would think that they would want another guard, especially with how Sam Pittman was talking about how he views all these guys as tackles. But I think they're just going to kind of let that situation play out in the spring, and then we'll find out from there. Maybe they'll get into spring ball and panic and be like, maybe we did need to add another guard. But I don't think Arkansas has a ton of resources at this point. I think if you're bringing in a guard, it's not going to be some 3-year starter that you can really count on. And so on the offensive side of the ball, again, I think best available, but receiver and tight end might be the only positions they for sure go after someone. And then I think the defensive line, I know a lot of people have been asking about it. That's really the position that you can't be picky at all. You need like 2 more real bodies, guys that have any level of production. But yes, there's still some work to do, but I think on the offensive side of the ball, they're getting close to done.
Yeah. We'll get back to the chat, but I just pulled up real quick because I was thinking about freshman wide receivers at Arkansas in the past. So I was immediately like, Traylon Burks and Trey Knox. So I just wanted to pull up their stats real quick from their true freshman season. Burks had 29 receptions for 475 yards and famously no touchdowns. Trey Knox, remember, he got off that hot start and then kind of fell off, but he had 28 catches for 385 yards and 3 touchdowns. And that was, again, as true freshman. Now, would Mike Woods have been a sophomore or redshirt freshman? So it was his second
Mike
year.
Woods caught some passes in 2018.
Yeah.
He probably had like 300 yards or something like that.
So
Keyshawn Jackson is another one that a couple years later had like 200 as a freshman or something like that.
Right. Mike Woods then in his second year, 33 catches for 423 yards and 4 touchdowns. I just feel like you might need more than that out of Crutchfield. You know,
I would also say that those were bad Arkansas offenses. Those were bad Arkansas teams. I think those are 2-10 teams we're talking about there.
Yeah. Which, we had a 6-6 team that had seniors, this past year getting similar production there. So we'll see.
Curtis, we're also forgetting the 700 yards and 7 touchdowns they're getting from Antonio Jordan out of Warren.
I like that.
Anytime you're talking about the receiver room, you got to mention that they got a 6'6" donkey that's about to be a red zone target in there.
That's right. That's right. Angel, we're with you, man. He says, I can't wait to see who wide receiver 1 turns out to be. Yeah, exactly. Is he on the roster already? Is he not? We don't know, but their options from that standpoint look a hell of a lot better than they did 48 hours ago. So I'll give them that, man. Like I feel better about the possibilities now than I did beforehand, no doubt. A lot of people saying the same thing, like offense starting to come around, defense still work to do. I agree. Love this from SCT. He says at the Christmas dinner table, should I put this on Bluetooth? Yes. If you didn't already, you should have.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, yeah, we got to talk about this real quick. From Marcellus Watson says, too bad we couldn't get Ty Washington back before Notre Dame. Good for him, man. I was surprised to see that. I hope he does well there. Notre Dame was not on. I was just thinking about the offers that he had received up to that point. I didn't think the dude was going to Notre Dame. So good for him.
Usually when you have a guy tweeting out the offers he's getting, he doesn't end up at Notre Dame. Like that's typically how it goes. If you're like, yo, South Florida, they're bringing me in. Like if you're getting the play-by-play updates of your recruitment, you're usually not going to a blue blood, one of the most historic programs, a playoff team, which is notable. Ty Washington's a good football player, man. Like, I mean, I thought he was a good player at Arkansas. Was kind of surprised he didn't play more at Arkansas this past season. I think he can help a lot of teams. I think he can absolutely play at the Power 4 level. So good for him. And you think the Notre Dame guys did a live breaking down his tight end commitment?
No, they should have. We should do it for him. It just ain't gonna happen today. So,
well, this counts. This counts.
Yeah, absolutely. From our man Ryan McDaniel, he's been thinking about the defensive line a lot lately. He says, "I want to sound ungrateful. Of course you don't. It's Christmas, but I'm still worried about our defensive line. So am I. Any news, rumors there?
No.
Not really.
Concerning lack of rumors, I would say. Yeah. Now, to be fair, we've been saying that for weeks, and they ended up landing a couple guys, but like." that was kind of like we were hearing about, oh, the Florida guy that they're bringing in, oh, the Michigan State guys on campus, and we were like, I guess that's it at defensive line. I mean, they brought in Jamal Jarrett, not necessarily going deep sea fishing on the D line, it would not appear.
Yeah, I would, again, for me, it's like if they're serious, about really putting the pieces together that could take this thing to another level, which is what people want to see, not just replacing your losses, and you're not going to replace Landon Jackson anyway, but whatever NIL money you have left, like if there's any more room to stretch that budget, a Christmas bonus, whatever the heck Arkansas Edge needs, I would be putting it towards, defensive line. Another starting D tackle probably, but definitely an edge rusher, man. Like they need to go out and get a proven commodity out there. And it's just, they don't grow on trees, man. So like you would have to outbid people for it.
I mean, let's just be real. They brought in 3 edge rushers who combined for fewer career sacks than Landon Jackson had this past fall.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's a good point.
And Landon Jackson, people were like openly pissed about his lack of sack production for like half the year. He ended up with, I believe, 6.5 sacks, but like the 3 guys Arkansas brought in have less than that combined in their careers.
Jeez. Michael from North Carolina, I think he's asking you, what's the threshold for Crow? Are you there with the,
guys, like, see, these are the kind of questions that force me to be an asshole, Curtis. A receiver who played 7 snaps last season is not necessarily the threshold. And Arkansas, and now on 24/7, by the way, Arkansas is going to end up with like the number 3 class in the country because 24/7, I don't know what their formula is. I know that some 24/7 employees have been openly critical of it. I don't know where Crutchfield, he's not actually ranked on 24/7, so I don't know if he'll get a huge bump. But before the Crutchfield commitment just now, Arkansas was 59th in the country in on threes, ingoing and outgoing transfer portal rankings. So to answer the question, Michael, I would say get into the top 30 of that before we talk about Crow. But I don't believe Arkansas is going to get into the top 30 because I think they got absolutely they got a hate crime performed on them in the portal. So I don't know if they're going to get there. I mean, let's be real, because I mean, look, we'll be nice and we do lives for all these players. We hype them up. We read the stats and we say, hey man, this is a talented piece that can help Arkansas. But like, come on, let's be real. This roster ain't looking like an all-star group.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help but to feel better about it now than you did, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, which is what Pittman said. Like, hey, give us some time and see how you feel. I feel like they're on track to doing a pretty good job of replacing what they've lost, and I think we know what that means. Here's what I'll say: I think you can look at both sets of these transfer portal rankings and get something out of it. If you want to know how Arkansas's portal haul ranks comparatively to their peers and everything else, check out 24/7. Like, that's going to tell you where you're at with the class of guys that you're bringing in from the transfer portal. And right now it's top 20 in the country. We'll see where it winds up, but that's pretty good. And it's a necessity, right? If you want to know how your off season is going overall, which means the attrition that you have leaving your program, comparatively speaking to what's coming in, then check out On 3. And then obviously it's going to be a little bit lower because despite some of the guys that you're bringing in that you're excited about, you've lost a lot too. And so I think there's value in checking out both of them. And so, if people are excited about the class coming in, you should be. I mean, there's some nice pieces there for sure. No doubt about it. More needle movers than there was a week ago. So they're doing a good job there. Still work to be done. And the truth is we're really not going to know what this looks like until we get into next season because of some of the swings they've taken with what you were talking about earlier. Highly touted and recruited and talented guys from a rankings perspective who haven't proven it yet. They need to prove it at Arkansas. If all those guys hit, McCroy, Platt, Crutchfield, then you're in a situation where, hey, yeah, maybe you are better.
I mean, look, I feel like Arkansas, for to answer their question for real, getting all the way back to the Crow comment, I really feel like if you had landed maybe 4 or 5 Corey Robinsons,
yeah,
I'd feel a little bit better. Like if you had a Corey Robinson on the D line, a Corey Robinson in the secondary, a guy that clearly they had to go out and spend money, because that was kind of our whole thing, was that like, hey, Arkansas is going to land some guys. They'll be able to replace what they have. I think you've mentioned that whole thing about replacing what you had versus actually improving your roster. And Arkansas is definitely replacing what they had, which is fine. Like there's, you have to start there. But in order for us to really be like, oh, wow, we were wrong about this portal, I feel like you would have to be going out and getting guys that other teams want, winning some of these battles against an LSU, against an Auburn, against a Florida State or whoever it is. And I feel like right now Arkansas is kind of getting who they can get, and they're going to build from there, and we'll see what it looks like. But I wouldn't say they've gotten a ton of those, like you said, needle movers.
Yeah. And they gotta keep pushing here, because it's almost like high school recruiting where, man, you look at the national ranking for like the incoming class at 24/7, and you're like, hey, man, that's not too shabby. It's looking good. But then you look and you see all the SEC schools still in front of you. LSU, number 2, Ole Miss, number 3, Auburn, number 4, Mississippi State, number 5, Kentucky, number 6, Texas A&M, number 8, Missouri, number 9. So it's like, dang, everybody else is putting in work too. So it's just like it's an arms race, man. Like to just accumulate as much talent as you possibly can. And like you were saying, like you can't be picky. You just got to bring in as much talent as possible and then make it work through your coaching staff. It's the Steven Dix model, right? I love that. What Travis Williams said in the preseason in fall camp, where he was like, hey, we just saw a linebacker who hit the portal, who had some stats, and we called him, got him in here. And it turns out that it worked out because this moves so freaking fast in the portal that it's almost impossible to really be able to do like a deep dive evaluation unless you've like played against a guy or recruited a guy in the past or whatever. We got a couple super chats.
Oh,
Captain Serious Band, appreciate you. Says CC Courtney Crutchfield is going to be an Arkansas stud this year. Oh, yeah. Welcome home, buddy. He's going to be a fan favorite for sure. Yeah. And this is a good thing. You mentioned it too, but like it was a bad look, or at least a bad moment in the Pittman era when Crutchfield wound up going to drink instead of staying home and going to Arkansas. That was not fun. But you know what? You got him back on the flip side of it, and he didn't do anything for Missouri. It's like nothing lost there. And
you can get all of the Courtney Crutchfield production.
Exactly.
Hey,
that's
by
exactly
the way,
right.
We can't get off the stream without mentioning. You remember when Sam Pittman low-key threw a little bit of a shot at Courtney Crutchfield in that press conference? Yeah. And he was like, because I don't remember who it was that asked him about, oh, Missouri's got all these guys from Arkansas. And then Sam said, well, I don't see a ton of guys from Arkansas on there too deep, which was objectively pretty funny. But at that moment, like if you would have told me then that Courtney Crutchfield was going to transfer to Arkansas, I'd have been like, no way. So credit to them going out and making it happen.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Jason Doyle, really appreciate you. Merry Christmas. He says, regardless of how he turns out, it's just good to steal a player from Dork. I agree. And listen, it's hard to not look at this as a poaching situation. Good on you, Sam Pittman, for going out and doing to others what they're doing to you. It's the golden rule, it's all good. Same thing with going and getting the offensive lineman from Kiffin, whether he would have helped him or not. I don't care. You got an Ole Miss guy, you got a Missouri guy. Screw him. It's good.
This reminds me of our good buddy Scotty Borderline. When we leave the casino, sometimes if we were in the positive at all, like one time he won $25 and we were walking out. And he said, "Man, we heard him tonight." That kind of makes me think about that, where it's like, look, the casino's going to do what the casino's going to do, but we won tonight. We took something from them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Angel says other SEC teams are improving. This is true. They are. And we noted some of those, looking at it, Arkansas is doing good with their numbers right now. But like, as far as portal rankings are concerned, LSU's got 7 4-stars. Ole Miss has 6. Auburn has 6. Like, you're seeing those high numbers right now. Arkansas has 1.
Which is Jaden Platt, by the way. And I know they still got some updates to do. Like, I don't know that Crutchfield has a ranking over there yet. They probably have 1 or 2 more at this point, but that's, in terms of that talent discrepancy or whatever you want to call it in the SEC, the more, studs they go out there and get. I think at his press conference on Thursday, Sam said that maybe they had 6 or so more spots that they wanted to fill through the portal. He was already accounting for Omega Blake just by the way he was reading off the numbers before he announced. We were like, oh, okay. So maybe, 5-ish guys to add. I think they all need to be impact type guys. You do that, then I'm feeling pretty good about where they're at, I think. Hell, now is the time to stop being picky. Now is the time to just go get a guy. Like we've been saying that all the time. Just bring in as much guys as you can. But now it's like, hey, you've got a few months. And by the way, there's going to be another period in the spring after spring ball where, again, some of these additions will come. But so, yeah, it'll be nice to see them really be more selective here and just go after a guy that can really change the team a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Just a couple more chats and then we'll get out of here. From Sauced Up T-Man. He says, the kid from Eastern Michigan, Marcus Allen. Thank you. For whatever reason, I've been wanting to say Marcus Vick. I've been wanting to say Jaden Allen. I've been like everything except Marcus Allen. I've gotten it wrong a million times, so I stopped trying to say it. But yeah, that's the kid from Eastern Michigan. Pretty good numbers that he put up there. Sauced Up T-Man says he will be wide receiver number 1.
Well,
hey, if you get him in here, he'll be in that competition.
I will withhold comment because it's Christmas and we are happy and we're good.
I didn't watch any Eastern Michigan football, so I can't comment one way or the other. Jeff Bergen, our buddy, says Sategna could have had a bigger impact on Arkansas this past season. Agreed. We can all argue he didn't get his chance. The production he did have is easily replaceable just because he wasn't showcased.
Okay.
Are we shortchanging what he did, though? Like, I don't know.
So I think what he did was fine. I think, 450 yards or whatever it was. And I think he had a couple hundred last year. It's less even about what he did. I think people are missing the point. It's not if it was just Isaiah Sategna that you lost, yeah, that's very easily replaceable. Hell, Raylan Sharp and Cam Shanks might account for as many yards just by themselves as Sategna produced. So I don't necessarily disagree with the statement, but it leaves out the very important context that the SEC's leading receiver is also one you have to replace. Isaac Tesla, who the fan base freaking loves. They think he's like the best receiver of all time. You got to replace him as well. Tyrone Broden, who, it wasn't a fan favorite, not a huge guy. A couple hundred yards you got to replace. You just have to replace all of it. You also have to replace Lucas's production. And so it's like just one of those things where if it were just Sategna, yeah, absolutely, you can replace him. But that's why we felt like Arkansas should have done more to keep Sategna, just to not have as much on their plate. And so, yeah, can they replace Sategna? Sure. Objectively, they're not going to be able to replace all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No
or at least they haven't yet, I should say.
Right. Okay, let me scroll down to the bottom of the chat here and see if we got anything else cool. You're all cool for being on here. Honestly, seriously though, I mean, this is good stuff on Christmas. Like, if we're gonna hop on here and do this on Christmas Day,
might as well have
you guys can do is listen, and that's what you're doing. So thank you very much. We appreciate that. I've seen a few people, so I'll just kind of bring it up in passing here instead of just pulling up a chat. Mentioning Anton Junkaj, who I guess he was at started out at a JUCO. I thought he was at.
That's why they call him JUCO Kaj.
Yeah, so there you go.
But I didn't know that either.
Yeah, and so Sam Pittman was asked about him with the new ruling about basically you play JUCO, doesn't matter, doesn't count against you. If he would come back, and Pittman said basically like, hell, I hope so. And I agree. Now, it didn't click for him this season, but maybe making that leap, he just really needed time. And he had injuries. He had a concussion in camp. He had something going on with his knee during the season. He was also banged up. But I wouldn't hate it if he could come back. Like I wouldn't, him coming back wouldn't be a situation for me where I'm like, yeah, you're good. You don't need to go out and get a defensive end now. But it would certainly help to have another body that played for you this season. He played a lot of snaps.
He played a lot of snaps, and look, again, it didn't click for him this year. He didn't have a ton of production, but this is a guy who I think he had like 14 or 15 sacks last year at Albany. Like, he was an FCS All-American. Obviously, he struggled with the transition to a higher level of football, which is kind of to be expected, but also like, is something that we have to note. But again, we feel like they need as much talent as they can. They need as many bodies on the D-line. So yeah, I think Junkaj, if you can bring him back and get 3, maybe 4 sacks out of him, that would be awesome. You know what I mean? That would be a huge plus, especially when you're looking at a room that doesn't have a ton of proven production so far. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Kyle, I see you here. He says, I think we are underrating CJ Brown. I don't think so. I think, the staff was really, really high on him. And honestly, we were too. We thought, after fall camp that he would be a guy who could probably crack the 2 deep and, make an impact for Arkansas this season. That wound up not happening. I think he's got maybe a little bit of an unfair stigma just because of that fumble, in the Texas game. Mm-hmm. But he's a very talented kid. I have no doubt that he's going to have an increased role and everything next season. For me, like, I'm just not looking at that and banking on it and saying, yep, this is your guy next year. Oh yeah, just plug and play him as a starter and you're going to be just fine. No, you got to go get some other dudes. But do I think CJ Brown's a good player that's going to be able to help him? Yeah, I absolutely do.
Could not have said it better myself, but I am going to try. Okay. Yeah, CJ Brown is a guy that as soon as he got on campus in spring ball, he started working his way up the depth chart, which, look, is there anything to write home about when you go from third team to second team? Not really, but like when a dude starts doing that immediately after getting on campus, you could tell that they see something in him. It's going to take a little bit longer than we thought. I definitely would have said he would have caught maybe 10, 15, maybe even 20 passes just based on how he was performing in spring ball. Didn't really translate to the games, but they went to him a few times. They had a touchdown drawn up for him against UAPB. Talon misses the throw. Man. They have the disastrous drop against UAB. I think there was one other target that went poorly. The Texas game obviously happened. So it's like just one of those things. You don't draw up plays for guys that you think stink, especially when they're true freshmen in the SEC. So it tells you that they see something in him. I think the fact that he didn't produce necessarily in year one is not something that like makes me think he can't produce at the SEC level. I really do think. And now look, he's got a massive opportunity in front of him Friday. He's going to be one of Arkansas's best receivers. He's probably going to play 40, 50 snaps on Friday. Go out there, catch 3-4 passes, get in the groove, kind of show this coaching staff you're a guy they can count on. I can't wait to see if he makes the most of that opportunity and to see kind of how he fares in spring ball against some of these other guys.
Yeah, and we can kind of wrap it on this, but that is my one thing about this Liberty Bowl, which I got to admit, like the closer we've gotten to it, the more I'm looking forward to watching it. But the reason I am, no disrespect at all, and I'm pumped that these guys get another game, and I hope they ball out. But I would much rather see CJ Brown and Monty Harrison, Cross Johnson, I don't care, whoever else getting those targets than I would, just being honest, Tesla or Tyrone Broden. Even though it's their last game and you want to see them shine, go out on a high note, given where you're at with this roster, I kind of want to get a little bit of a glimpse of the future. Yeah, I'm sure those guys are going to get some target. And I'm with you, man. I hope that CJ Brown is a part of the plan on Friday in Memphis. So anything else? Any parting thoughts before we get out? We did 40 minutes.
No, this went way longer than I thought I was going to go.
Yeah, we did 40 minutes on a freshman transfer receiver. And on Christmas
7 career snaps, man.
Yeah. So, but no, that's a really good get for Arkansas. Super talented player. Had he have been in that 2024 recruiting class, it would have bumped that ranking up pretty good for him. And we'd have been thinking a little bit differently about Sam Pittman's ability to recruit in-state players. So you get him on the flip side, and it's definitely a good thing. But hey, we really appreciate everybody sincerely for tuning in and rocking with us, not just during this live stream, which is awesome. The numbers have been really good there, but we've been putting out some other things, Pot at the Palace, a bombastic and everything like that. And if you're taking time out of your holidays with the loved ones to listen to what we have to say, we certainly appreciate that. But hope everybody has a good rest of their Christmas holiday. If you're traveling, travel safe, and we will be back in the morning with a little bit more Pot at the Palace. And then also Inside Arkansas Live makes its return. So make sure you tune in for that. For Andrew Ellis and Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas on the Pot of That Nature. Y'all have a good one. Merry Christmas, everybody.